pixel art over there.
It's a very big city. You don't get
That's pixel art?
It's not pixel art, but I like the pixel quality.
Oh, hell yeah,
That's
That's
kilometers. It's like
I can't remember the name now. I spent a while trying to. I think that came from Brazil. Funny enough, I think that was. I might even have it. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I totally forgot. Yeah. Pixel.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, this right here was so awesome. I was trying to get it on. Nothing. You're the only person who had captured
Has it always been there?
Yeah, it's now. I think we only started using that like a couple of weeks ago.
I didn't just turn it on, like it was off all the time.
Somebody realized that you can actually turn it on. You show this viewer the screen.
Yeah, that's nice. I just meant to like so when I was in the short line.
So the prices, we'll go over it when we get to it.
I didn't see the price.
The pricing is unbelievably low. Like really yeah.
This is what I was saying. But did you see that?
It's like a dollar for
Did
each
you see?
final
Did you see? Todd made an announcement today.
Not for SDK, but I saw.
API protection, all API.
No, I didn't get that. Okay, oh, we just that. When was that? I only got.
The one that I see. There's
I only got this one. 2 hours ago from something about Mythos or whatever.
yeah, the one that I see.
Where did you send it on?
No, I sent you this. There's another one.
Oh,
Go to Quad. They announced that they're increasing usage API pricing. Specifically, I think for Sonic. But I think it's a standard.
This area is and you think why you're right?
you can check my email. I saw an email.
That's what it was. I saw it in the email. That's what it was. Yeah, I didn't see the tweet.
Higher rate limits on Quad API. We're raising the rate limits. Let me just take a picture there.
But it's not this area. This is more when you go out here, super fast. This is not a good area. I know every person that comes to this area gets disappointed.
Okay, there we go.
And I give you more because they don't know.
Got it.
Right to the board, and then I just submit the stuff there, and then I'm on site. Just like basically, and then it's just like they just
LP dropped by yesterday.
yeah,
Really?
I had like some
David.
Oh, yeah, how did that go overall?
right now.
guys get more customers coming in? More stuff going
Yeah,
on?
we got Steven's got two one of them is like a small one, but I think they just do it anyway.
You need the case study for a drop. You need the case study for a drop.
Shopify.
Yeah, every rep.
I have like so many unread messages. But most of those condos are you can see my map, you can see how the market are in this area, and the more you go to the south, yeah, this is where, yeah, so this is, I'm only living this area. Maybe it's only if you find no, it's not. It's like the whole this area is I'm just thinking very local area, dogs, nothing.
You can take it.
They have a voice for someone here, but then they don't transfer it on the phone.
Yeah, just move super bright. I went to bed like a 4. I spent like 30 minutes in that. No. Let me try to. I think it's at the very bottom.
Supposedly on the benchmark, 5.6 chairs
Sol is $5 input, $30 output. Terra is $2.5 input, $18 output. Sol is the top.
Sol is the mythos.
Yeah.
But Terra is like supposedly
Yeah, $15 output. And Sol being $30 output.
But Sol's being blocked by the government as well.
Yeah. The other two aren't.
But yeah, Terra's
That's insane. I don't even know how you. That's an insane price.
But even yeah, that's crazy. Like if you compare that to when you paying for not even Opus. Oh yeah, it's cheaper than Opus. Opus is 25.
Now it's
versus 15. You might have to get a Codex subscription.
yeah, I know.
If it really is truly like Fable, I highly doubt it.
But if it's close,
If it's close to Fable,
yeah. it's not better. If it's close or equal, it's still price-wise.
There's also like there's the nuance of what difference of working. So it's kind of saying like, you know, it may be perfectly on par with Fable from a benchmark point of view, but in the real world, you know, Claude always generally wins.
But you know, if you can't use Fable,
Yeah, but they did say they're working on it.
it seems to not be going well.
Well,
It seems to really not be going
they
well.
passed Mythos. They're letting Mythos be re-released. They got it like that.
Made up and there's like 15 of them.
If you read that post,
There's weird stuff going on. Like,
I think it's going to be the KYC. I think that's the problem. Is I think Mythos they can control because they already control it. Right? There's already a KYC, so that's why that can't.
July 8th is the day that they drop the catalyst for their, like, where you have to start using the site.
You have to start using it.
It was on July 8th that said that the identification thing.
But they said that it was for like it would be required for less than 1% user. It's whenever there's a fraud issue. But yeah,
They have the announcement is 1%, but they said, oh, maybe we change it to.
well, it may depend on what the admin says about what they have to do with KYC. I think the only difference if they're letting Mythos out now, it's because it's already KYC. If they're waiting for Fable, it means they're trying to find a way that they can release it with the same whatever rules that's in place. But it's good that they're being the same with GPT. So no, I mean it's good that they're like not treating it differently.
Oh, that one's getting paid.
Yeah.
That would be very scary.
It already seems
It's scary enough as it is that they're blocking these releases. But even Sam Altman's post about it was like kind of scathing. He's like, "This is not how we want to do it." He's like, "We're willing to do it, but we don't want to."
we're doing it to play ball, and we're not.
It's not the way we want to do it.
And you see this from across the industry, a lot of people pushing back on this whole, this is not how it is.
Government should. I mean, I understand why they I also think they should.
Yes, so one of the this is what I want to talk about. One of the ramifications is because this is a president, or setting precedent. Two, I don't think we get out of it.
No, well, now that it's a precedent,
Right.
like it's going to be every model from this point on is going to have to get government inside, which means that it's unless
Well, I think what it means is it gets weird for them.
the only thing I could see happening is if Anthropic and OpenAI got together and filed lawsuits against government intervention, and the Supreme Court basically were to say you don't have that right anymore. That'd be the only way I see that happening. But you know how that goes too. If they do that, the way Trump works is like, hey, I'm just going to take over you guys. Government take over.
Well, how much do they own? Has the Supreme Court judges changed? We have one change. I don't know the chess I think
But they sided with Anthropic about the other thing. Almost every district court sided with He was on
They said that they're installing an AC unit, but they were installing it last I agree with it's out of my head. I wish we're trying. We'll
fix this. I don't like it. That's too far down. That's too far down. When you do something that fills up the sidebar, like a movie, I got rid of the no, the indicators are still there. They're just not in vague. So, like, basically, the robot turns into a cloud if it's a cloud place. And then, no, it's a different hardware. And instead of the A, it's a B. But it's only there. So it's like so it just like makes it less it's not really important by your data. It's also seeing like the name of the it's just the first
Good morning. Hey guys, we're gonna go ahead and start this. Let me turn this off. This is not working. Thank you guys for coming. You know what? Before we start, we do a quick light adjustment. Hey guys, start this. All right, so I'm gonna change the lights, and you tell me which one works better. This is better, or this is better?
This is better.
Light on is better.
That's good.
Yeah, this one.
That's better.
Yeah, this is better.
This one.
This one.
Are y'all can see that? All right, we're gonna go ahead and start. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off. So thank you guys all for coming. Thank you for coming on the weekend. I imagine your week is as busy as everyone. I mean, we're all having extremely busy weeks. Work is nonstop. That's what I imagine what's going on. So thank you for coming. For those who are new to the room, can I actually see a raise of hands? Who's new? Hasn't been here. All right, cool, awesome. So this is like this is an engineering-ish meetup. Let me sort of break that down. So we've been doing this for like well over 2 years, and the concept is AI news is changing so fast. I mean, 1 week is equivalent to 1 year. Come here and keep up with all the things that are going on. This is a safe space to talk about engineering stuff. It's okay to talk about code. It's okay to talk about AI in a very technical sense. So that's what we sort of try to encompass in here. The way this goes down is I just bookmark a whole bunch of news items that happen during the week, a bunch of drama, and we go over it. We share our opinions, we share what you have worked on. You can ask questions. So yeah, it's sort of this campfire thing too, right? So I'll just jump right into it and we'll go ahead and start. So, whoops, wrong button. Let's start with the biggest piece of news. This was like last night at what, like 12 a.m. our time here. So GPT 5.6 dropped. Normally when these models drop and we all come here, the excitement is like, oh, who tried it? What have you gotten out of it? It's only been less than 12 hours. Has anyone even opened it? I doubt it.
It's not available.
It's not available?
It's due to restrictions.
Somebody already found it.
I haven't been, it's not sold.
So all right, let's break it down. So
Terra Alpha.
yeah, okay, that's great. So let's actually then, I'll assume no one has heard the announcement. So GPT 5.6 Sol came out last night, and what they came out with, let me find the picture here, 3 models. This is the post that they had, so 10 hours ago. We have Sol, Terra, and Luna. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the Sol model is the sort of Mythos equivalent from OpenAI. It is currently unavailable unless you're one of the chosen with the golden ticket. So that's like basically like 20 companies in the US or something like that. Am I correct on that? It is Sol, right? Sol
Yeah,
is
Sol
the,
is the
Sol is the Fable-like.
Mythos, Terra's the Fable, like,
Okay, that's interesting. So Terra is the Fable-like and Sol is the Mythos-like? That cannot be.
as far as
Terra
the,
is the 5.5 line. Terra is the one they say is like 5.5, but half the price.
yeah.
Oh, okay, so the
But it
one that's,
benchmarks the
Terra is
same
like
as Fable.
mid-range, and they say
Yeah.
it's like equivalent to 5.5, but half the price what it was. That's what they say.
okay. So that's one data point here, and then Ian's got a data point
No,
saying
I just
that-
saw the benchmark was, the Terra is the same benchmark as
this
Fable.
one, right?
Yeah.
Probably this.
Yeah, I think it's that one,
Let's pull this up.
And then Luna's like their fast affordable one.
So let's start with Sol. Sol Ultra, which by the way, so part of this model release is this thing they're calling Ultra Mode. I can't imagine where they possibly got that from. So for those who don't know, Anthropic has going back a year ago, we had Ultra thing, got removed, I think it came back, and it would set your minimum tokens to the thinking tokens up to the maximum rate, right? So I think it bumped it up to 32,000. So Sol comes out with sort of the same capability, and if we look here on the benchmark, Sol Ultra is sitting basically better than Mythos is what this benchmark is showing, right? So these two right here, the one on the very left is Sol Ultra, the next best one is Sol, and then Mythos.
They
Yeah,
also,
you-
sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, they also say on the Mythos, how it beats it is also like it uses 1/3 of the alpha token.
So Sol beats Mythos with 1/3 of the token usage compared. That's the claim, right?
And the cost is like a,
Competitive with Mythos preview on exploit bench using 1/3 of the alpha tokens.
That is incredible. Okay, so there's a couple of things to break down here. I want to try to break down, like, for those who don't know the news, and then also like what's coming out, like what Steve is saying, and what it means. So I'll take a step back from that. One, I'll start with this new model that's just come out from GPT, which is supposedly as good as Mythos or very close. We're not sure. What's interesting about it is the pricing side. Pricing, let's look at it right here. You'll see this line.
$30 per 1 million.
Sol is $5 input, $30 output. I think Mythos is at $125 output for its per million.
Yeah, it looks cheap.
Yeah, so significantly cheaper. Terra's at $2.50 input and $15 output. And I think if we, Opus 4.8 is $30 up, $30 output, I believe.
25.
Yeah, I think
25?
it's
5 and 25.
25. Okay, so it went from 30 to 25. That's right. So it's, and in Luna's at $1 input, $6 output. That is, so relatively speaking, that's like a drastic difference in cost with a promise of equal or more, sort of power to these like insane model from Anthropic. So I suppose the more interesting thing here is going to be when we come back next week for those who did play with this, to kind of hear what your take is, because that's kind of a big deal, right? Like, so for those who had the ability to play with Mythos when it came out, and then as it was pulled away and you got sucked into depression, that sort of tells you how amazing Mythos was, right? I'm really curious how GPT 5.6 is going to play out in the same regard. Like, is it really as good, or is it just coding centric? I read this report last night, and it seems like OpenAI went extremely far into the coding side of things as far as like what 5.6 can do. And so I don't know how that stands up against where Anthropic is usually more, I feel like they're less concerned with coding, and they're more concerned with like knowledge work, work that's happening outside of the coding realm. So I'm very curious how that sort of, takes place.
My understanding.
Oh, sorry. Okay, it's worth noting that they only published the terminal benchmark. A lot of the usual coding benchmarks, like SWE bench and so on, they just didn't publish them. So they only boasted about this one benchmark where they got
Good
better
point.
details, but all these other benchmarks that usually everybody looks at,
Yeah.
they didn't even publish it.
So what do you think is happening there? Is that you have a suspicion on why?
It's high praising, and I think
Benchmarking,
eventually we'll have
basically.
to just publish the whole network data, and people will know exactly where it is. But right now it's more
Yeah.
generating hype.
Yeah,
So
good
we
point.
don't really know where it is.
Good point. That's a very, very good point. Yeah, that they only released this one benchmark.
Only release
on the-
what they're good at.
Yeah, we got to see all of the benchmarks and sort of the empirical, like what people feel when they start playing with it too. I think that's like probably the most important one.
Yeah, so I haven't tested it yet, but my friends at Codex said it's about like between 4.6 and 4.7 on design. So that's why it's not really like pushed. It's better than GPT 5.5 at design, which is like really bad.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm told that they, internally it's about like 4.6 to 4.7 Opus on design quality. Nowhere near like 4.8 or Fable, but like it's not really, it's a benchmark you don't want to push out if you're not as good as the other frontier models. So they're just not going to talk about it. But everyone's going to notice immediately that it's better design. It's just not, it's significantly better than 5.5, I guess.
Yeah. That's a really good, that's interesting. And that acknowledges what Sam Altman had said. There was a tweet from him, I don't know, a month ago maybe, where someone was like, oh, GPT front-end design really good, and he responded to them like, are you serious? Like, I know for sure Anthropic's model is actually better at this one point, which means it's an acknowledgement that the GPT models, as far as design goes, was not their, wasn't amazing by them. So this is an interesting note to hear that maybe this is finally the step change on design for the GPT model family. That will remain to be seen by all of the subjective reviews we hear from everyone in the coming week.
Has anyone tested it yet? Anyone? It went out last night, right?
I didn't see it this morning at all.
There's no access.
But they said they rolled it out to a couple of users internally and stuff too. So.
Yeah, so what's the play here? Like, I thought Soul was rolled out to a few people, but the others are not?
No, there is no access to any.
There's no access to any of it?
But there is an independent report. There is a news from some METR or something like that, and they say in the report that these models like to cheat a lot.
It's probably
That's what they say.
Geolog too. So.
They said that when they create a benchmark for the models, they like to, the model would investigate its own harness, like its own test, and start cheating and see like what the testing code does. And that's in the report, so that's a bit concerning. Like if this model is not as as honest as you would want it to be.
Yeah. Well, also really smart too to think about.
It's very smart, but it's tricky. That's
Yeah.
what I said.
Interesting. Okay, so it's, but the point there is that it's not available currently.
Not available.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the release is currently restricted to small groups of trusted partners.
Well, it's not really.
U.S. government.
Yeah, it's not a release. It's
Minecraft.
yeah. So it's only a few people. I suppose if how well connected you are and how deep your pockets are probably is what matters here.
Nick, on the pricing side, do you think they're going to be like similar on the token usage? I feel like, you know, on the API side, they're giving a discount right now, just because they're trying to, you know, push it out there and say like it's as good as Fable and then cheaper. But I feel like the token usage is going to be, you know, kind of mysteriously, you know, same thing. Right? So.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff that's definitely going to happen. I'm very curious how all this is going to play out. As a matter of fact, in part of the, I'm trying to find it here, there's this little segment that talks about something that I thought was like, whoa, what, they're doing that? I don't know if I'll be able to find it. It's a needle in the haystack search at this point. I should have marked it. But somewhere in here they talk about, I'm just going to scroll through this, and as I find things, I'm just going to point it out. So right here they're saying this is like that thing about the new max reasoning effort to give Sol the most time to reason deeply. Additionally, we're introducing a new ultra mode that goes beyond the capabilities of a single agent by leveraging sub-agents to accelerate complex work. That's very interesting. So that's like ultra mode from Anthropic. You can look at it two ways. You have ultra code, which means turn on workflows, and you have ultra think, which is sets the thinking token budget to maximum. Ultra here in this case is like this nudge to use sub-agents. From my understanding, sub-agents by GPT wasn't really good anyways. You had to steer it directly in the prompts. I'm very curious to see if naturally and instinctively if the model sort of reaches to sub-agents now. That's like a really interesting sentence right here.
It's weird, actually, because usually when you talk about sub-agents, it's in the harness level. I mean, I would expect OpenAI API to just provide me an inference endpoint to the model, and my harness, you know, does whatever is related to sub-agents, and now they're saying that they're providing like a harness inside their cloud, so they're like, they would already use sub-agents inside their API call, and like if I use my own harness, then I would already get a response, you know, with whatever they did inside with their sub-agents. It's weird.
I think that's a really good point. We talk about this here every single week about the sort of migration of the features coming out of the labs and the accessibility. It's sort of migrating to this web platform where everything is sort of hidden behind a web wall and you can't access it directly. Like some of the things were like the code reviews from Anthropic or managed agents from Anthropic. Like they're increasingly more and more features that are like you sort of can't interact with the model directly. Instead, it's just something behind an API endpoint, like you're saying. We have to see if the sub-agent stuff is behind the endpoint or if they, you know.
Like it's not a model anymore. It's a whole harness. And,
Yeah.
You know, the API just does something inside a black box and you know what it's doing.
Yeah, that's like scary and interesting. And what does that mean?
Maybe
Right?
it's a good result. I mean, maybe the end result for end users is good. I mean, maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. What
We'll
do you
have to
think about it?
see. There was a thing here that I really want to find it. I would love it if someone can help me find it. There's like what they're doing is they said that something like they're allocating. You know, maybe I can find it like that. There is in this. Here we go. There
Jailbreak and stuff.
is that what it, I think it's like a monitor. Isn't it a monitoring tool? It's
Call it the
Active.
it's active, right?
It's red team.
That's what I had.
It's basically synthetic structures trying to break the model itself in order to make it give a ball.
So I can explain it to the room what's going on here. Is it that there are, is it the case that it's 700,000 GPUs that are running 24/7 specifically to red team?
It's 700,000 hours. That's one thing. So it can be 10 GPUs
Oh, it's hours, that's right.
24/7.
True. Yeah.
For a full year, and that's their pledge. These GPUs and their capacity will actively try to break the model so they can react in time when they find a novel way of jailbreaking the model.
But the thing here is that this is happening every day, nonstop. And so if you think about like within a company when you have your security team and your network team, you sort of have like these like network scanners and inspection tools and all this analysis stuff that's running 24/7. I've always was curious at what point do the LLMs start to also take on that job, because it's like really expensive to do. And this is like the first instance of this, and it's coming out of the lab themselves. That is an incredibly, incredibly interesting thing to point out.
In a sense, I mean, it's like a little patchwork crap of kids. You know, I mean, why not keep having the models like try to break themselves over and over using some compute time?
This is something that I assume A is already happening, and B, I think I caught like a glimpse of this news 6 months ago that Anthropic has been doing that already.
And really, I never heard about that.
It was last year when GPT OSS was released.
Uh,
It was November of last year or something along those lines. And they created these red teaming challenges. So now they have a Kaggle data set of 5,000 teams, or however many people was there, that were actively trying to jailbreak GPT OSS. And that's your basic training data set that the OpenAI team has of novel and different ways of thinking. How can we actually jailbreak this?
yeah.
You just chuck it into the latest GPT, allocate a couple of GPU hours to it, and you have a beautiful PR message. But under the hood, I assume that they're already doing that. It's just Fable came out, Mythos came out. We need to rename 5.6 into something more sexy. Well, it's
I don't.
sold.
I'm so incredibly curious what. There's so many things at play here. You know, when you have, we've talked about this here sometimes where we've said like, there's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be sort of this bloodbath. We were saying this like last year where when these super powerful models come out, you're gonna just have like hacking that's gonna happen nonstop. And I think I saw a report yesterday or something. I can't remember what news channel. I think I might have it in the slides. But they were saying that like as of this week, the sort of hacking that's going on around the world where people are trying to either penetrate other systems or find 0 days and do something about it is happening 24/7 right now, actively 24/7. There are state actors who have teams that are up all night or running some shit that's running all night, and it's a real thing. That's the point, is that it's a real thing. We sort of come to a moment where I think security has to be taken with a higher level of seriousness than maybe whatever you were taking last week. So moving forward, that's a big deal on how you architect your agent systems and how you're making stuff for your customers, how you're standing up your own business. If your business has a lot of AI infrastructure, you definitely want to know how security is what's happening in the security world, or else you're going to be one of these people who get hacked and get all your shit taken.
Who all in here uses Ubuntu or Linux? Who all in here uses Pro? Okay, so you're an idiot if you're not using Pro because it's free.
Yeah,
So
five
just-
licenses for free.
Yeah, you have 5 licenses for free, and they don't care you sign up with your emails. And right now, the only the auto updater for security updates is like a recommended. Just do it. So on the security side, if you're using Ubuntu, just go on the side, sign up for the 5 free accounts, hit Ubuntu Pro, and it just unlocks it, and you just have auto updates for security. Because I guarantee most of you in here probably haven't checked security updates or patches, and that's where a lot of holes are. And your whole system's going to get infiltrated, your customers are going to get infiltrated. Like, there's just no reason to not use it because it's free.
I have a question for you, because I am kind of forced using Fedora for LLM-related stuff. Just one's better for the machine. Fedora, vanilla Fedora, or Ubuntu Pro?
There's no reason not to go to Pro. It's not much of an expense difference, but I don't use Fedora, so. But for security, it's like, it's just maintainability nowadays is just ridiculous. And, you know, how many people raise their hands and also hasn't checked their security updates, right? Probably 67%. So just switch to the free version, turn on auto updater, and as soon as the security vulnerability patch comes out, it auto updates. And there's no need for restarts. Like, Ubuntu's whole thing is like, you know, Pro is just the same thing, but with auto updates, better security patches, and you don't have to restart it ever.
Good point.
You're talking about OS, but I mean, everybody in here is probably coding and opening their whole computers up to other issues, right? Like NPM packages, code packages. I mean,
Yeah, I run a
you should be
weekly
doing
check.
a layer of that daily, checking against your logs, finding current like exploits, running
Yeah.
like a cron job every 5 hours or whatever that may be, you know, and just having an automated system. Do that if you're not already, so.
Yeah, I love that you bring it up because I think we are entering into that world where your security scanners on your own machine, like, it's probably more ideal to have them running within a 24-hour window, maybe multiple times within a 24-hour window. That's pretty crazy. We've never ever had to think about that or do that. That's an insane, you know, sort of situation to be in. So
I wrote a Codex plugin for my own personal stuff. Looks at all my packages, pins them in the database, and then checks every day against known attacks, not stuff that isn't known yet, and then alerts me. But it also goes like when I have free tokens towards my end of token cycle, I'm like, what GitHub repo should I scan? You know, how should I use this and like benefit that? And I go to scan and I found things in open code, open design, and I submit PRs with that. So I'm trying to like use my free tokens to kind of help with the security scan.
Also turn on Dependabot in all your repos if you're on GitHub to make sure that that automated scanning happens throughout all your repos, because if you're very strict with keeping your dependencies isolated to your repos, you can kind of be sure that what's in your repos on your machine too.
yeah, yeah.
And
Also
that works great.
Also added a layer like AI is good at like just here, use this package, but maybe it's only 10 lines of code to write, you know, for example. So I have a diet scan that goes through and sees what I'm using and like tries to remove the amount of packages, but do it more in code whenever, you know, applicable.
And for your containers, like use Trivy or something to scan all your container images that you either build yourself or that you use from other people. Because I assume a lot of us using containers, and they often ship with either older OSs or like very, very old dependencies. That's unfortunately very common. Like, or use a pull cache. Like if you go bigger, use something like Harbor. It's like a registry you can host, but it has like a lot of security features integrated. Use it as a pull-through cache, and then you have a dashboard. You can see.
Yep, good point. Good points on security. I mean, it's like it's not the most hot topic ever, but hey, this is it's just becoming increasingly more important, and it's good to know what to think about it, how to. It should be in your mind in some way, right? You should be able to recall some of the things that we're talking about here. If you want to be safe. I want to. What happened here? I had something here that I also wanted to read.
I want to point out another thing regarding this, like that the caching is 30 minutes is kind of interesting, because with Entropic the 5-minute one is sometimes a little bit tight, and I'm still not sure if I understand it entirely. Like if I have a orchestrator session running and it spawns sub-agents, like does the cache of the orchestrator session time out after 5 minutes?
Yes, it does. That's one of the biggest things with Anthropic. You're using any sub-agents.
Yeah.
Literally, you have to like tell it. So if you want to save a lot of tokens, I run mine 24/7, and I did a lot of benchmark on this last week.
Okay.
So the only way to really get around that is to tell your agent, specifically in the pod entity, like if you fire off a sub-agent or you're working on a PR or anything, be polling, right? So I literally have a little prompt that says, if it's going to take longer than 5 minutes, which is like 90% of things, poll between that time or do a wake up every like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Like a loop.
That is so fucking expensive.
Can run a loop.
This is the trick even in this, is like they lower the token cost, but they're going to finally fuck you on the cache. Because GPT has been like 24-hour cache historically, and so they just haven't cared about the cache. But now, yeah, it's cheaper token-wise, but 30 minutes, literally as soon as you walk away, I bet you these, like, GPT's gotten really bad lately about, it's gotten really bad lately about basically, I did one step of the plan, just checking in, right? Like, and you said, no, I want you to run through this entire sprint, right?
Yeah.
And so you're gonna come back and 30 minutes later, your cache is gonna be invalidated, and it's gonna run your token usage out.
Yeah, caching is always, I love that it's becoming more and more of a topic in here. It is really, really a big deal. It's the difference between a $10 bill and a couple $100. It's really, really important. I think there were changes to caching from Anthropic side this week. I can't remember. I think they did have a property that you can send in to enlarge the window. I'm not sure if it is.
But it's server
Oh,
side,
you've always
right?
been able to
It's
do
server
that.
side, yeah.
Yeah, so I can tell Anthropic to cache longer, or
I think it's only for API requests, but yeah. So it's not the same if you're like using Claude Code CLI. That I don't know. Oh, but there's that environment variable, right? That you
Yeah,
can
it's an
set.
environmental variable.
Yeah.
You can change it to 1 hour. It's just more expensive. It's like 50% more expensive.
Yeah.
And so like it kind of averages out, but like polling with Anthropic or wake ups are not expensive at all. I'll post, remind me after today, I'll post the prompt to add your Cloud MD, and literally it will save you millions of tokens.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things, the companies are pulling more and more out of their prompts now. Like one of the things I'm pissed off about this week is for 5.6 release packet they ripped out a bunch of the prompt for 5.5.
Yep.
So your agent's been really shitty this week. It's because a lot of the tooling, like RIP reps have been crazy expensive. I've had a bunch of issues on memory because they ripped out the tooling prompt because 5.6 just knows how to use the tool. Well, 5.5 still doesn't remember it should use max file size. It shouldn't just scan 100 megabytes or 100 gigabytes, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's these little things that I've had to optimize because they just ripped out a bunch of the prompts.
It's such a really interesting thing to bring up because going back a couple of weeks ago when Ian was over in Tokyo, spoke with Boris, and Boris was like, hey, the best thing that we found was to rip instructions out of the prompt. Like
They removed 80% of the system for
That-
Fable specifically.
That's why the Opus model doesn't poll anymore. It used to poll. Now it does not. So now it just fires off and it just invalidates the cache every fucking 5 minutes. It's the most annoying thing. And that's the GPT team, that's one of the reasons they don't like using subagents because like it messes with, on the cache side. But now it's gonna fuck everybody on GPT side with the 30-minute. I mean, 30 minutes is not bad. That gives you enough time to work through a PR, do a couple of iterations, and keep it going. 5 minutes has always been a fuck you on Anthropic side because basically it's always been invalidated. But used to, in the prompt, it did have polling, and now for about the last, I think, a couple of weeks, it hasn't been polling at all, so I had to re-add it in.
Yeah, Anthropic is addressing this in some interesting ways. Like does anyone here use the /fork command? If you're in the CLI, so that actually,
often, yeah.
it retains the same cache. I believe it actually branches it, I believe.
Yeah.
But they did say when they released that feature that it does borrow the cache of the main session, and so you keep it hot basically.
I think if you fork, that's true. If you branch, then it's not true. Branch is like a completely separate session, right?
Yeah, so you have either fork from wherever you are, or start from 0, which of course means no caching, obviously.
No, but you have branch too, /branch, right? Where it's a separate new session, and it gives you the resume command for the original session. But fork, you can fork out, do whatever, and come back to your main session, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the branch is the older one.
Yeah.
It's been there for a long time. And then fork is like within your session, just for this like sort of ad hoc, real quick request built on top of the context window.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious how that also like that is true. I don't know where they're going with it, but that's
Because
true.
I use branch a lot lately because I was like, I have this idea, but I don't want to pollute my context, and I
Yeah.
actually want to continue on the path I am with this session, so I do branch. It's probably a lot more expensive and not the best way to do it, but this way I don't pollute my actual context, but can retain it for my other idea and then work into separate sessions,
Yeah.
like from the same base.
Yeah. That's a really good use case. Yeah, open up another pane. You want to run the other session in there. Yeah.
The only problem before is because Anthropic was like the session will use the same plan models, or use plan mode at all, and if the other one's still working on the plan, and then you fork the other one to just go a different direction, it will try to use it'll update the original plan name. They use those weird names, and so then it will mess up the other agent. So if you do a fork, you need to tell the agent it is a fork, and to rename and use anything different. That's another piece of the prompt they ripped out. And so as soon as this was done like last week, and so I fork a lot, and I had to add it back in. So if you are a fork session, if I tell you a fork session, you need to change these 3 things.
Yeah.
Your plan MD, the implementation notes, or wherever. Otherwise, it will start using them, and then they'll corrupt the other previous session. So, but it is very good for the context copy.
Yeah, it's useful. I'm just curious to see where they go with this in the coming weeks, because it's not really available from the like Cowork, for example. It's not an option there. I think even the desktop, it's not an option. I believe it's only in the CLI at the moment. Okay, there's a few things I want to do.
I still have questions about
yes.
this, like, and why they are like decreasing the cache time? What is the reason?
So they can use you to pay more money. Right, so like on GPT side, like it's a pricing strategy. You can lower the price, you can say you're cheaper than Fable, but now you don't have 24-hour cache anymore, right? And so as soon as you step away for 30 minutes and you open it back up, it's going to fire off all at once. And that's what people haven't seen yet. As soon as you see like a 30-minute cache versus the 24-hour cache, the GPT's not been transparent about this. It's either sometimes it's 12 hours, sometimes 24 hours, but now they say it's 30 minutes. Like you're going to see an immediate, it's going to go from 90% to 70% as soon as you reopen that session. And so you either have to keep sessions continuously running or not. But any of your sessions, like how we probably operated with GPT before, where we just check in and, oh, here's my threads, I'm going to continue them. As soon as you click like 5 threads and restart them, they're all going to be very expensive. You're going to see a huge jump, just like you did on the quad.
Yep. This is not security. They have resources for their long-term cache.
I'm sorry, what?
So it does to make more money. They have all the resources to keep the cache longer.
Yeah, it's always a price strategy. Like the cache isn't. It's not like cache isn't magical, right? It's just them on their hosting side and how much compute they have and whether they want to keep it live. Like it's just kind of an option to how long they keep the cache window. It's not anything else. In fact, it's probably preemptive to them trying to move everybody to Cloud Threads. So internally in the team, they want to move everybody to Cloud Threads because the internal running your system kind of a mess. And so they want to move the option to the remote boxes, Cloud Threads, and then they keep all your data, right? You don't even have to, you can't run anything local anymore, right? But yeah, it's really an option. I mean, I'm sure it is a pricing thing, like it is expensive to keep a cache.
Yeah.
But storage has always been cheaper than compute. So I personally don't think so. But I think what we're going to see is people are going to be pissed off about it. They're going to then say, oh, we'll make it 1 hour, right? And then that's a whole, they learned a lot from Trump, right? They take it away and they give it back to you real quick, and then you're real happy about, you just got fucked. Like, you just lost 24 hours. Like, you're going to be happy and you're going to take it.
Yeah.
And it's still better than Anthropic's 5 minutes. I mean, whoever was on the pricing strategy, I think literally they created an art of the deal with Trump's book, and that's just like, they said, that's the AI thread. And they say, how should we do pricing this week? And they say, well, Anthropic did this, so we should do this. Let's take this away, but then we'll give it back next week when they complain. I honestly think that's how it's run.
It could be, yeah. There's all these interesting strategies on how, I always say that it's akin closely to video game companies. They sort of have to follow the same sort of psychological angle that video game companies takes with their customer bases, right? You can't nerf a game, you'll get a huge
Day one DLC.
Yeah.
You know, literally, like everybody's pissed off.
Number one way to have your customers hate you. So yeah. Okay, 2 things. I want to read a point here, and then I want to talk about regulation, because regulation has been in the news nonstop. It's been in our chat. I'm very curious to hear everyone's take on it. So let me read this thing here first, because it's just, you can easily miss it, and I thought it was a big deal. So I'm going to read it. It's 3 paragraphs long. A layered safeguard stack. This is what comes with GPT 5.6. No single safeguard is sufficient against determined or adaptive misuse. Across the 5.6 preview, we use layered safeguards with exact configurations varying across models and pressure test them for real-world attacks. Let me come to right here. 5.6 is trained to refuse prohibited cyber assistance, including when users attempt to disguise their intent or jailbreak the model. These model level safeguards establish the first boundary around what the model should and should not help with. this is effectively equivalent to Fable level, where they're saying if you're going to do some sort of biological something, you're going to have a classifier that's going to check your intent. Same with like weapons or design or anything cyber attack related. And let me just read a little bit further so I can get to the point here. Real-time cyber and biology misuse classifiers provide another layer by evaluating output as it is generated. For higher risk cases, if they detect a potential violation, the generation may be paused while a larger reasoning model reviews the conversation. If the output is assessed as disallowed, it is withheld before it reaches the user. That is a big fucking deal. That entire paragraph is an acknowledgement that 100% of your queries are monitored and being read, and something about them is being done. That is a pure acknowledgement that at this point in time, and OpenAI is basically saying, this is what we're going to do to your stuff. Whatever you send through the wire, don't expect it to be private. It's definitely not, because we're running other models against it now, because we need to make sure that you're doing the right thing.
I don't think that's new.
It's not new.
It's not. The thing here is that you can't turn this off, and it's bound into the model's design, into its architecture. That's what's new. That has not. We don't have that anywhere. This is the first model of its kind that, with the model architecture itself, has this sort of shit in play.
I think we did this kind of stuff with previously, even 1 year or 2 years ago as well, with other safety classifiers. I mean, even with the bad language stuff and so on, and picture generation in ChatGPT.
That is a good point.
Maybe they didn't say it this way, but they just did it anyway.
That is a good point. There were these. I'm curious. Like, were those static classifiers, or were they also LLM? I don't think they were LLM. Well, there was because you could get banned, but it would come like 30 minutes later, right? So that is true. Maybe it is not different after all.
I think they did have alignment stuff about training the actual model, to refuse or not use certain stuff. That's what they call the first layer, like the model itself is trained,
Right.
refuse, and the other layer is the classifiers. And I think both of them existed already, but
Yeah.
maybe they just phrased it in a very clear, explicit way right now. That, I mean, this is what we're doing, like you say. It's not new.
They all have terms of use, right? And they're always monitoring to make sure you're not violating terms of use.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it sort of connects to where Fable. There was a big fuss about when Fable came out. They were saying that for the first 30 days, your stuff was going to be saved, and they were going to use this for testing purposes, but they were basically anything you use within 30 days was like game for them to take a look at and peek inside and see what's going on.
Yeah, I think they're going to use this a little bit like what's called bad cop now, and then the government will always get now be the bad cop kind of, and I think this is actually a helpful thing for these companies, so they can blame all sorts of new stuff on some government regulation coming. And at the end of the day, I mean, for me, this announcement now that OpenAI also gets kind of checked on this, this is like bursting the AI bubble, because this is now like turning more people towards the Chinese models, of course, for everyday use, and we will see this continuing. And China's AI playbook is totally working. I mean, they're really having success with what they're doing, and yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting from that point of view.
Yeah, but enterprise cannot use Chinese models, like we can, but the
Sure.
cannot.
But I mean, some still do it, right? Cursor with their fine-tuned models, Minimax, and all that. So, I mean, depends on. And the other thing is, I mean, regular models like Gemini and stuff, they just get good enough for the average Joe. That's it, and that's why also, I mean, some of you guys will also follow like what happened to local AI in the last couple of months, and it's insane. Like, it's insane the progress there, and good enough is good enough. Some people will always want to have like the best camera, crazy Sonys and whatever, but cell phone camera is good enough for most people now, right? And I think this is happening with AI as well, and all this together, it just goes open source and Chinese model. At the end of the year, some guys said now, I think the GLM team said, at the end of the year, they're going to have maybe like Opus 4.7 sort of model. I mean, they already have a pretty good model now with the latest GLM, and if that's available and getting down in prices for everyone, yeah.
You're talking about GLM 5.2, where you hear all the rumors that they're closing the gap to Opus basically, and it's very, very close. And then of course you hear stuff about, so we can move into the regulation here, you hear stuff about how Fable comes online and within the first 48 hours you have sort of this like massive distillation attack from the Chinese to Anthropic, and they're extracting all this information, which you have to imagine what are they doing with it, how long does it take for them to take that info, turn it around into some model that exceeds GLM 5.2 for example. I'm very curious about the regulation side. I saw a lot of chats going on in the WhatsApp group. I wasn't participating in them. I was like, well, it looks like it's on people's minds, so how about I just bring it up as a point of contention and hear different people's take on the room on what's going on in the regulation world. So what is happening?
Yeah, I feel like it's the crypto wars again, that US tried to regulate export of encryption levels back in the days, and then eventually they lost that. And it feels like it's the same thing happening over again, that once the local models are good enough, it doesn't matter if you want to make a biological weapon because you can't run it on your mobile phone.
But so what is happening though on the regulation level? We're seeing, let's just recap for a second, just to sort of calibrate. We have Fable comes out, and not even 3 days after it comes out, it gets pulled from the whole world. And then we go into this, like, what is it, 2 weekish now sort of drought where it's all we hear are these little, the breadcrumbs we hear that's coming out of the White House is like, no, the White House is, the people are the reason that this is not coming out to the world because there is some sort of negotiation going on that I have no clue what the hell is happening, right? What are the rumors? It's sort of like that the Trump admin is not letting it go out, right? And then you have OpenAI who I think it was Sam Altman yesterday when they did the 5.6 release, he had something to say about, what was it? It was something like,
He said this is not the way that we're going to do it, but it's not the way that we want to make releases.
Yeah. Not the preferred model.
Yeah.
Preferred model of, I guess, regulation or interaction.
Which is like a political speak for, I don't like this.
Sam is okay with the models being readied, having like an extended process of reading it before releasing out to the open, but he does not like that current system of basically someone else government picking up randomly, we're going to take our model right now, without explanation. That was his main.
Yeah. So the U.S. government's basically stepping in and saying we're going to judge and sort of we're controlling the reins here, and a lot of people don't like this.
Exactly.
I mean, I might want to add that if you can remember back in the day when all the leaders went to the White House and they were asking, especially OpenAI, asking for regulation. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a long time ago. And actually, there wasn't too much regulation because the U.S. government had pretty much hands off, I guess, right? And then I think now fast forward to this Anthropic Fable issue, where suddenly we just had this, they yanked it away, right? And everyone was like, what the hell? And they didn't have prior warning, I suppose, right? And there was that Trump interview where he's like, oh, it turns out that it was like a competitor or a former owner or whatever he said. He was trying to, stir the pot in terms of the gossip, right?
But then he did say like, oh, but Dario's good and they came. And
yeah, they came.
Everything's going to be good.
Everything's okay. In other words, it's like, oh, this is maybe, because Anthropic was saying, well, look, nothing has changed, right? Like, and the safeguards we had were already there before, and it was fine before, so why isn't it fine now, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, because somebody told us it wasn't, right? Trump was saying, but now that we've figured it out, it's not as bad as we thought it was, right? Like they're making sense of it, I guess. They were like, oh, let's pull it because we don't understand it. Oh, now Dario's here, we understand it, yes. And now, by the way, everyone's signed up for this kind of regulation. In other words, from now on, everyone has to submit their new model to the government for vetting before it can be released, right?
This is an
except for
voluntary action.
Sorry?
This is the new law? or-
This is the
So
situation.
this is worse than having a law. This is worse than having regulation because you don't really know what it is.
Yeah, you don't know what's happening. You just know that behind the scenes.
If it was a regulation, you would know these are the
What are the rules?
regulations.
Yeah.
That's not what's
So,
happening.
and Meta, out of all of them, so Google, X, Anthropic, OpenAI, they signed up apparently, right? They have an agreement, a written agreement for this vetting, and Meta is still the last holdout, right?
Yeah, they know.
No, like legally.
So wait, but what's happening here? Like my understanding is that Meta is sort of holding hostage all of this, or is that just them saying? Is that
I think they're not happy with the terms yet, but their PR is saying, we anticipate we will sign on soon. We're working through the details. But like what it means though, just like on paper or officially, Meta is the last one. But there's a new regime, right? There's a new protocol, which is the vetting, right? And they're saying, we've come to terms, whatever that means, right? Like happily or unhappily, we have no idea. But that's what I mean. I think that's for me, it's about uncertainty.
yeah?
Like,
yeah.
What changes is that there's an uncertainty in terms of, well, now we know there's a mechanism, and the gate is a government gate, right? And it's opaque, as you say. We don't know what the hell's going on, so it creates that uncertainty.
Yeah, so the problem there is that, like, I see so many people, you have to kind of, like, I didn't jump on board immediately with the government, but I'm fully on board now in the sense of every time a release comes out, it's jailbroken in like 3 days, it's distilled by China in 3 days, it's like fucking OpenClaw. Like, they just fucking, developers just fucking put release, they just release shit. And someone needs to say, hey, like, your shit's getting stolen by China. Like, it's actually the best thing for your IPO to check with us on this. Like, I hate to be the one that says, like, Trump needs to test it, but the developers are just fucking pushing the button. That's all they're doing. And they're releasing it. And yeah, I know some people in here are not American. And when KYC comes out, they're gonna be like kind of sad about it. Because that's definitely gonna happen across the board. But the reality is that at the end of the day, you have to choose your superpower, right? And like, do you prefer America, which is like really nice, and yeah, we'll come for your oil, but we mostly give away most of our stuff, we let everybody come in, and like, or do you want China to be your superpower on the AI side? You just have to pick. And so, like, that's really the decision you're making when it comes to whether you're using open models and supporting, hey, I'm really excited GLM stole everything, right? Like, I'm really excited, like, all this stuff happened. Because at the end of the day, whoever wins that war is who is going to be your superpower that runs the rest of the world. And I promise you, the Chinese are not nice. I'm Chinese too. I'm not, like, I'm all about money. Give me your money, right? Americans, we're dumb. We just give away all our money, right? So as a foreigner, even like some European, right? Like, I would recommend you support the American model of AI, even if you can't use it directly or you got to go through some process, because the Chinese model is going to be infinitely more expensive. It's going to hurt your economy. Something's going to happen long term. It's not going to be as helpful and not pro your country. Like, you're French, and like America falls right on the AI side and China wins, I promise you, your country's not going to be as better off as it will be if Anthropic or OpenAI does well, right? And at this point, I just see the government as, even if the government's a bunch of idiots, I don't always agree with the government, like someone has to be the business person that says, well, it's getting jailbroken every 2 or 3 days, let's get fucked, like we really got to slow some of this down and have some regulation, because right now, there's zero, right?
Right.
Why wouldn't it be in the interest of the companies themselves to gatekeep this?
Because
right?
it's all developers, and 90% of the code is
But you're
viability.
saying they're not competent, and you're saying the government that's running America is more competent
No,
than
no,
the
no.
people that open AI.
So it's not about competency. Sometimes slowing stuff down, like the companies themselves have begged for it because they can't not push the button. They literally have said, like, it's not like they're, I really don't think Dario,
but they have the issues. If GLM and extracts and distills everything, I mean, that's their issue, right? Let the market regulate it. And the other thing is, I mean, you have a government, which is not the most competent government stepping in, trying to fix things on that level.
but the government's only asking for like, hey, like just prove that China's not stealing your shit.
Okay.
Like just do that.
Wait, but that's a whole separate thing. Like regulation about whether a U.S. I mean, think about this, right? How many people in Anthropic are not U.S. citizens? Okay, let's just say.
But this is Trump's whole thing, right? You start on the farthest end, you negotiate. Yeah, it takes 2 weeks, and we can't use our Fable for 2 weeks.
But
right?
the conversation has to be, there's an assumption that if I can ban people from accessing it or whatever, that's going to solve the problem. Now, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but that's a huge assumption that isn't discussed or understood in any way, right?
No, this is just a Trump show.
Like, does this even work? Is this going to work, and why? And who are the smartest minds to think about what we're trying to do, and what are the levers and the mechanisms that we could regulate that could actually affect those things? That's what's most interesting in the conversation.
America became what it is because of freedom of speech, this kind of values. These are completely negated by this thing. This is not going to stop at cyber attacks. And the politicians will ask eventually to have the correct opinion about everything.
So is KYC?
No, there's passion here. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Is that a reasonable thing to do for the
I think they would game it too. They're gaming everywhere. Like,
The Chinese will game it, 100%. They will just pay people in this room that are Americans or hack our account and then just use it anyway. That's the thing is, but like that's the argument of like not trying, right? Like the American CIA is like a lot of Israelis. They're pretty good at cyber warfare. I think that the Americans, on our NSA and CIA, I think if they work together and we give them like at least a month, like we're used to the models moving really fast, right? Regulation used to take years, right? We're complaining about like 2 weeks without Fable. I miss Fable too, right? Not the game, but the thing. But it's one of those things like 2 weeks. If the American government moves in like 2 to 4 weeks, that's pretty fucking fast.
I kind of agree with your point of like that regulation slows down things a little bit is a good thing, and like even if you don't have the people in the government that are maybe more competent than the engineers at Anthropic or OpenAI, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they ask the right questions and that you think about it. It's like, think about you're in a startup as a developer. I think all of us violated like security guidelines of our companies, right? We pushed things too fast or we wrote code where we didn't take into consideration security baselines. All of us did that. But imagine you had someone at the other end that checks on you. He is not a developer, but he asks questions. Have you thought about this? How did you solve this? And then you're like, oh, fuck. No, I didn't. Right? Even though he doesn't really understand what you're doing, they just have foundational knowledge about how things are working, and they can poke you. They're like, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you read that? Right?
But look also what they did with the crypto regulations that they were running. I mean,
Yeah, but crypto was all scams, right? Like, I don't know about
look at the complex.
So, no, it's good. So look, like the regulation talk, I love it, by the way. I'm not going to try to stop it. The reason actually I want to kind of keep it in the room and look, the passion that goes with it, all this, there's a huge incredible importance here in knowing what's happening, having some speculation on where you think things are going, because all this stuff has downstream effects as far as like your planning goes for. So I don't know, if you're in a company and you're making decisions, you have to make some really critical decisions right now on, am I going to use Model A? Here's why. What is your fallback plan if the government pulls it from you? Are you going to use an open source model? And you know where that road, or at least the speculation is on where that road goes. All this stuff is in the air, and I love what's happening right now because these are all the things that sort of need to be considered when you're making any of these decisions. It should not be sort of like, I'm not going to look at it. That's unacceptable. There's all this stuff that's in the air right now, and it's like really, really important to be looked at.
Yeah, I kind of put in the chat, like, I mean, what is everybody's fallback plan?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Are you relying on OpenAI or Anthropic solely? What happens if it gets pulled? Why not look at what options you can do for certain things that you're trying to do?
So yeah, I would like to turn that into a question to the whole room.
Exactly.
I'd love to hear anyone who strategies that, if you're willing to share, on what you're doing as far as fallback or how you're deciding model choice.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that people have to get in their mind now is the human is the bottleneck, and I think we've all experienced this already. When things are like over our head, wow, the AI model is like smarter than us. So, and the average human is maybe, have a bigger bottleneck or something. So, I think keeping this in mind when you develop something that's customer facing now, like very soon the frontier models will be awesome maybe for like scientific work and so on. But the normal models will be good enough for the normal human. And I think having this frame of mind when you have a consumer facing product, like DeepSeek does good text generation. It does it. Like it's good enough for many things, right? So, I mean, for my things that I'm working on, I definitely have this on my radar. And in a lot of cases, I think at the end of the year, the cheaper models will be good enough for 90% of everything.
Yeah, it just depends on really what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if it's business critical, right? I don't care about text generation, like any model can do that, but like if you put any model or even maybe harness, who knows what's going on in the harness world in a few years, if that's business critical, then you really have a problem. But I would like to stress the fact we talked about last week and I think the week before. How much work is it to adapt to a new model? Like suddenly you have to maintain 2 tracks, right? Constantly and see what is the deviation maybe in percentage. Like if they pull this, then my results will be 10% worse. Like am I willing to accept that? And am I willing to accept the overhead of keeping my skills up to date, my workflows, my books, my whatever? Like is the fallback really worth it?
Yeah, good point.
And to answer your question, for me it's not. Like if they pulled in the latest model, then that's fine. I'm happy with like the second last generation, right? It's not worth for me to work with 2 models and make sure they deliver 99% the same results.
I'm in the same camp with the.
Standards for all those things?
Sorry again?
You think eventually there'll be standards for all of those things? Like MCP is kind of a standard.
Yeah, but it still doesn't work the same. Try the same MCP server with 2 different models. It's still not the same.
I think it depends on business case, because like if it's a critical business case, you want to fall over from one model to the next model. That's what I do myself. But if it's like nice to have things, like typically like closing it down, like SDK being pretty shitty the past couple of weeks, then I just like pull that availability, so it's just like disable while the close is down.
I mean, I think at a minimum, you should, in your system, have multiple model capability. You can then do a calculation of whether it's worth it or not, but like if you don't even have it set up, and then the shit hits the fan, you have 0 optionality. You are just too, it's tightly coupled. You're too tightly coupled to one provider, one performance, right? So at the minimum, that's what I'm doing. I'm basically having a round of these models. As new models come up, I'm vibing it. Right? The next thing with this is to have evals, right? In other words, it's like this whole understanding that if you're building a system, it's a robust system that takes tokens, right? Transforms intelligence, has intelligence, transforms from one thing into another thing, right? And then you can have a tolerances of how great that quality is dependent, right? And you have a tolerance. And for each task that you're doing, you know, it's better if it's better, of course, but you have a floor, a bottom, right, where it's absolute shit and it's unacceptable. So, and then you should have a robust system inside of that, and an eval system that says, well, here's a new thing, let me just plug it in, let's just burn some tokens, and let's see where we're at, right? So I think that's where the future is headed, that if you're gonna have a system that's gonna be a robust system, it's the specs and the evals. So in other words, it's like 2 things that are gonna be the gold within your company that is proprietary, which is the context and the learning, understanding of your actual operating model, right? All of that data. And secondly, the evals that you have. Like you have this robust set of evals that it doesn't matter what happens, it's your evals, because you know what good looks like, you know what those levels are for whatever the operational task is that you need to do, right? And then you can just plug it in, whatever it is. And if Anthropic comes out with this thing and you can strap on a nitro booster to the GAN, good, go. And it rips, okay? And you have the stats to say it's ripping like crazy. But if it stops, right, you got and something happens catastrophically, you're not dead in the water because you can't have the flow stop, right? And then you can just hook it up to another engine, and yes, maybe it's only 50% capacity, but you have ways of dealing with that because you know what that is. Well, if it's that, it's like 50% longer because I have to do all these other checks. And I have these other preliminary systems, right? So, and this, you know, Europe right now, France is pulling out all, as policy, all US IT systems. What? And this is what I want to stress. It doesn't matter, you know, everyone has their interests and it makes sense why the US would be doing what they're doing, okay? But it's uncertainty. And so what is going to change is going to cascade in the market, where you're like, everyone's going to start investing in this robustness, right? And they're going to say, if there's a capability for when the shit hits the fan, that the US doesn't like us anymore, we come to an impasse, yeah? They can't just pull the switch and their entire fucking system goes down and we're fucked. Like, we're just fucked. That can't be. And someone did the calculation that that's actually going to happen. And so as a response, that's what they're doing. They're saying everything is off Microsoft, everything is all, you know, or if you have it, you better tell me how you have a robust system of secondary, tertiary systems. And this is, I think, is going to be huge throughout the whole global system. You know, that's like the whole landscape going to change.
Yeah. One more thing then I want people to keep in mind is that actually this benchmarking and becoming model agnostic, this can be actually a good business itself.
Yes.
So this is just something people should have on their radar. If you work on a project and maybe, you know, the features get copied, but actually providing the service that people can come to you and you make sure this SolMD works with DeepSeek as good as it works with whatever, Minimax or whatever. That as a service, this is an interesting industry.
Basically, that means take care of your evals. They are becoming increasingly more and more important. It's never talked about, and it should be. Okay, go ahead. Juha, you wanted to?
Yeah, there was so I'm in the same camp with Daniel with this one. Like, if you're a small business or just a solo gamer like I am, just the overhead of maintaining like backup systems or being able to roll that, to move to another system just like that. It's just having that contingency for the if it may happen or may not happen. I'm rather having my system and almost think like if you're running a small business, which is not an enterprise, something like that, you are able to keep your system nimble enough that if the shit really hits the fan, then you bite the bullet, and then you do that extra. Instead of dragging like multiple different contingencies with you all. But then again, if you are a massive enterprise, you're gonna have to have contingencies. But you would have them anyway in those systems. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's a workout. Like, you should have systems. Look, you can always find tasks inside of your operating model that is not needing any of the frontier models, right? So just as a keeping fitness, so to speak, keeping the reps in, you should have all these open models and all this stuff doing that. Like, there's just a pool of shit that's happening, and you're getting information from that, so that if it hits the fan, you're not just starting cold from like zero, like with this emergency, like, you know, break glass system. It's not. It's like it's a running system on the lower level stuff.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, if shit hits the fan, you can pull from that, right? Because all those patterns and all those things you can now direct to the more critical things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's levels of operation even in the private system. I've got something like news scanning overnight. That can be optimized to Sonnet 4.5, and the skills can be the same. I don't have to change that. I can leave it running as it is. But with the like the daily actual work that I do, where I need from the highest level reasoning capabilities model, I want to keep that side of like I don't want to back that up. I don't want to create contingencies on that level. But I agree that even in the small businesses, solo dev, you've got areas over there that you can just optimize for one certain model and then just leave it as it is. Don't go updating that every single time. Because like if you have a set of skills that you can optimize for Opus and it works fine, Fable comes in, you probably have to tweak many of them to make them work. But then if Fable gets taken away, the Opus cannot really anymore like unless you version of the skills or something, you cannot figure out the old system based on the optimized Fable level. So there's like higher levels can optimize themselves against the low level instructions, but not the other way around.
Aren't we going to end up where we are with software right now? You don't put major releases in production until there's at least a new minor or patch release.
This is incredibly interesting because, you know, if the labs decide to pull a model off the shelf and they're very, let's say, hey, we're pulling this model off the shelf tomorrow. I mean, like, how do you factor that in as well? That makes all this incredibly complicated. I actually want to slowly shift gears out of this topic. I think we can do maybe one more thing. If you want to share one more thing on this topic, and then we'll.
He's 1,000% right on the move-off side. I would say that this last week I ran into GitHub Enterprise broke. I don't know if anyone had that issue. For like 3 days, like thousands of companies it broke. So I just moved everything over to a Gex server, $600, GLM 5.2. You know, it runs on there, and I moved all my control systems, security. That's how I discovered the Ubuntu Pro thing. It's not, I was the idiot not using Pro this week because, you know, I was constantly having to do restarts, security updates like every other day. And then I was like, oh, like my GLM 5.2, I set everything up, started running, and moved everything over, all my actions, and it was like, oh, we need to optimize this workflow, we need to do this, and hey, why aren't you using this? And literally it was just like, you should probably be using this. GPT never told me this. But the GLM model was like, you should probably just upgrade this, it's free. So I was like, okay, cool, did it, and oh man, all my maintenance on the daily side for taken care of. $600 a month, it saves me a ton of time. I mean, I know that's like 3 licenses elsewise, but I promise, like some of the models, as I was just talking about earlier, 5.5 is probably going to be deprecated soon too. As soon as they switch everything over, like they cannot keep up with because of the harness changes needed, and to like keep everything optimal, they're just going to be deprecating models. I mean, because like the RIP rep is broken in 5.5 right now. But it works in 5.6, so like, do they need to keep up to date and maintain it? No, they'll just deprecate it, force everybody to the new one.
Yeah, where to remove everything?
Oh, they removed some of the tooling prompts for RIP rep, so, and then some of the other tools because 5.6 doesn't need them anymore. So they're just removing more of the prompts. The problem is because the prompts are all for the 5 series, so like in the release, they just released like yesterday, so some of the, like, it affects how 5.5 uses tools. And so 5.5 is just dumber in the last week because they've been removing some of the tool prompts on how to use the tools because 5.6 doesn't need them, right? So this is like their mindset is like, okay, well, we'll just force everybody onto 5.6, right?
Yeah, but instead you moved your GitHub tools.
Oh, sorry, I moved over to a Gex server. So you can get like a Gex server. It's a Hetzner. It's like a GPU server. So you can get like 700 gigabytes of RAM to run like local models, like $600 a month. With Hetzner, it's called a Gex server. GPU server. GEX. And then it's good enough to run GLM.
GLM.
Yeah.
5.2 like
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to run it fast, but you can, for 600 gigabytes of RAM, it's good. And with the GPU side, you can run, like for my security side, my control panel, I don't need it running, fast, right? It's not really coded. But I just moved all my maintenance, all my systems, all my the backup plan, all the fallback. Like when GitHub Actions fail, it immediately switches over. In fact, I might even just stay on it because it's faster. It's like 100 times faster just to use my own. I use Woodpecker. Do you know Woodpecker? Yeah. I use Woodpecker for CI, and it's cheap, it's free, and I can edit it how I want, and it works. The only thing it doesn't do is Mac OS apps, so for like testing. But other than that, it's great.
All right, I'm going to switch the topic over to a couple of things. One, just the last point out on the 5.6 release, I just thought it was interesting. So in the 5.6 release, here it says that we're also launching 5.6 Sol on Cerebras at up to 750 tokens per second in July. So that's pretty fast, especially for a really big model, which we have yet to see how capable it is. But I just want to point it out that that's an option. That's pretty crazy in some regards because OpenAI is offering it's now just looking really good. There's so many options that are available to, depending on the type of business you're running. And the next thing I want to bring our attention to, so getting off of 5.6, is this video that came out from Cursor, the Cursor event that just happened last week or this week. I think it was last week. So on the 24th, this video was uploaded. This guy is the head of engineering from Shopify. Now, I, for the last year, had it in my mind that the large companies, large software companies, were going to be maybe the slowest to sort of change in regards to AI. I almost thought that the folks here who would come to a room like this were probably more nimble, more agile, have already switched over to, using AI and using it in greenfield projects. So I thought the large companies, it's going to take them years to catch up and to move on. Okay, I was wrong about that. So I want to share on how I watched this video and I realized that Shopify, with their thousands of engineers that they have, they give them unlimited budget. They're told to use the highest intelligence models. What's interesting is that the head of engineering here has basically acknowledged something that I think most of us here in the room know. Like, if you have unlimited spend for 4.8 Opus, you should use that. Use it for everything if you can. Like, if money wasn't a concern, you would use it for everything. And what's crazy is that this guy is saying, that's how we operate here. What's also crazy is him saying, we don't have enough engineers, and we acknowledge the world that we're moving into, and there was like this little funny joke in there about him and some other high-level person in the company, and they basically said like, you know, Shopify is a company of 23,000 engineers because they're at a point where everyone in the company is becoming AI pilled. They are pushing it down their throats, and the joke he made was, why don't we have 100,000? We should be thinking in terms of like, we need to expand violently and aggressively and have far more engineers than we have. That is, to me, pretty fucking big news. Because once again, I did not expect the large companies to pivot so fast to find some strategy that they would, you know, like, you would have to have a deep understanding of how to use AI in order to think this way.
The CEO of Shopify, already over a year ago, he said everybody in the company has to justify why they're doing what they do without AI. And I thought that was a great statement. Like, if you're the CEO, yeah, I mean, that's,
It helps that he's super AI built too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very, very.
didn't he do the
That's
memory
the most
management
obvious.
He released QMD. That was his-
Yeah.
Which was good back early days. It's not good now. But.
And so what's interesting about this talk, though, is all the various strategies that the company has already implemented, some that I haven't even heard of until I saw the video, some that seem obvious, but it's just interesting that it's being done. One of them, for example, they talk about the return of pair programming. So for those who are engineers in the room, I know pre-AI, long time ago, we all knew that pair programming was sort of a really good way to up your skill, or to sort of like bring up the skill of the team. There's also a good way to find bugs and so on. Now, what they have done is what they have acknowledged and they found out is that they're saying the most important thing that we feel that our engineers should keep in mind is their rate of learning. And so like they're creating all these strategies around this concept of like, how do we have our engineers learn really, really, really fast? How do they have tighter feedback loops? And so one of those strategies was like using pair programming, where you would have one person steer a harness and another person watch, and they sort of riff on each other on why they're going to type a prompt in a certain way, right? But among that, there were other strategies in the company that were all around this idea of like, we need to learn really, really fast, take those learnings and feed them into, you know, a machine that is effectively what Shopify is becoming. That is just incredibly, incredibly interesting to me. That's a massive company moving at basically the speed of a startup. Changes sort of the dynamics here, I think, in many ways, because you might have, what I would look for here is like, are other large software companies going to do the same? Does this mean that they all realize that they're all effectively FDE companies? Because what he acknowledged in this video is also that these developers should have zero concern with features at this point. Their job is to like go and help other people, go and empower them, go and find shit to build. That's very FDE-like. Like, go to your customer and talk to them, figure out what's not working, and stand it up, and move on to the next one. Very, very FDE-like. So there's a lot of interesting things happening here. This video, to me, really important if you're on the engineering side, both on the decision-making side. How should your org look? What does an org look like that's using AI, that is maybe legacy org, and how do you get to there? So just calling that out. Really, really interesting stuff.
This is like the Amazon moment. You know, when Amazon came on, and there was like cloud and this whole native way, the pizza team, like remember you had it, like it's like they had the Spotify model too, which was half bullshit, but like we're seeing this happen again, right?
Yeah.
There's a leading company that's native to, in this case AI, and before Amazon was native to internet and cloud and all that, right? And we're seeing that they are the lighthouse, right, of what good looks like. And this, so I think both things are true. You know, most companies are going to take forever. Even if Amazon was a lighthouse 15 years ago, most industries are going to be straggling, and they're going to have whatever baggage that they have. And some can, you know, but at least we have a sense of what that runaway could look like, right? And it's potentially those companies like Amazon could take a lot of ground because they are kind of like tuned and you know, so fast moving and so ahead of everybody. They could take a lot of ground in the market. So it's going to create this pressure.
Yeah.
Right? And it feels like an inflection point now where I'm feeling in general when I'm watching videos about AI, people are talking about practices, like how we think about this for leadership, how we think about this for, because in that talk he talks about knowing your problem, right? So now if it's like, it'll just do shit for you, the AI, it's really important to understand the problem then. We need to think more deeply. Sometimes we need to slow down to frame the problem properly, you know, as we see it. So all these other soft skills and all these practices come back, but then plugged into like an AI paradigm, right? So it's not necessarily, my point is, it's like leadership skills, management skills, organizational design, you know, because if you can do it, should you do it, right? And how should you do it? And what does good look like? What does like the human taste and intuition look like, right? How do I, like, what's a manager that has incredible taste and incredible understanding, but then also understands the AI system and also has systems thinking within the you know, what does that look like? And people are now starting to share their stories and share their practices and stuff. And I've noticed that maybe only in the last 3 months, where people there's talking about those kinds of ways of working.
That is true, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah?
I'm tracking.
So it's like maturing enough that people are reflecting, and then they're sharing. And this is like a whole new level, like a new other chapter.
Jordan?
Shopify, they went through their giant growth phase and they kind of sucked during that phase, and they eventually like stabilized post-growth to where they started iterating really fast, pre-AI. One of the things they've done really well is like, Shopify at the end of the day is like a database with good REST and GraphQL APIs, which interface perfectly with AI. Like they are a data model, essentially. They're like a e-commerce ontology storage database. So like them being able to plug in AI is a lot easier than a lot of other companies. So they've been working towards that direction. So they don't have to do a lot of other work. Yep. Plus they have hundreds of thousands of idiots running stores, which are just kind of costs. So if they can like offload all that support, which is immense, because think of who runs a small Shopify store, it's like some mom and pop shop. The amount of support requests they get is like immense, so them having AI deal with that is like massive cost saving. The other thing is Shopify makes money when you make more money, because they take a cut of your revenue. So their business model is also aligned with that. If they can empower you to make more money. So it's like they're in the good spot to take advantage. Whereas other companies might not be. Like their AI stuff might be a cost instead of a cost savings for Shopify. And other businesses aren't aligned where if you make more money, they make more money. So I don't know, it's kind of the perfect AI.
I love it. No, I totally agree. Those are really good points. And you know what's fascinating? So you have Shopify on one side, who is sort of this like, they exemplify a legacy company who is transitioning very well with this AI wave of technology coming. And then you contrast it with, so we have Steve, you know, the creator of Bees and I think Ghost Town. He had this post on yesterday, and I just thought it was, what an interesting contrast. I mean, let me just read it. It says, I talk to so many tech leaders at huge companies every week. One of the most brutal failure patterns for executive teams right now is thinking that AI is like SOC 2 compliance, a new checkbox item that they have to allocate some resources to make their governance and people happy. They think we'll get AI done in Q3 or Q4 and finally be able to move on to something else. What they don't see is that their entire company is going to change shape over the next few years, regardless of what they think or want. Their current hierarchy will be gone, nearly unrecognizable from what gets rebuilt in its ashes. Everyone will be conducting their business very differently from how they do it today. AI is not some compliance drill. Leaders need to get in front of this situation before it overwhelms them. That is an incredibly interesting data point to hear from someone who is sort of on, like you have a company that's on one side that's just like adapting really well, and other companies who like just, I take it, haven't moved. They haven't moved yet, or they haven't figured out how to move. I don't know what the situation is, but it's really interesting that that's, so what I wanted yesterday in the chat, I said I wanted to get a pulse check on what's happening in the world. So this data point, the data point from the Shopify video, are a pulse check on what's happening outside of this room, because sometimes it's hard to find out what's happening outside of this, the Chiang Mai bubble, so to speak. I will now move to something else entirely, because there's still like a million other news topics that came up, and I want to try to get to them. So here's an interesting one. For many different ways, many different reasons. Claude Tag came out this week. This is a video by Tariq, who expresses what it is. And so for those who don't know, supposedly, from Anthropic's own words, 65% of the PRs that are submitted in the company are submitted through a system that they're calling it Claude Tag. That's the version that they just released to us on the public side. This system, they have like some internal, the internal one of it powers that many, or creates that many PRs in the company, which is pretty big. That's a lot. That's more than 50% of the company, the PRs being generated by this Claude Tag. So what is this thing? It's a multiplayer, that's how they're calling it, a multiplayer methodology in how you interact with Claude. And the way it looks, I wish I got a better video here. I'll try to find it in a second. The way it looks is that within your organization, if you use Slack for your comms, you can introduce Claude into your Slack channel. If you might be familiar with the @Claude tag that exists as a feature today from Anthropic, that's going away and it's being replaced by this. So what happens is that you can @Claude in some Slack channel, and all the people in the channel can talk with that Claude. Previously, it didn't work this way. And what they're finding is that it creates this highly collaborative, highly engaging, very apparently valuable to them way of interacting with Claude. It's so, let's say, so valuable to them that you had a very controversial thing show up. Let me see. So Andrew Karpathy, the guy who's termed most of the things that have come up today, vibe coding, his involvement with Tesla and so on. Anyways, Karpathy, who works at Anthropic, said that, and this is to the Claude Tag, this is a new paradigm for interacting with Claude that is significantly more in line with all other human activity org-wide. Let's see if I can get his tweet here. Oh no. I didn't get a link of his tweet.
It is essentially said like the first phase. The first phase was chatting with a chatbot.
Uh-huh.
The second phase was like this agentic chat, and then the third phase is now where it's this kind of passive, multi-tenant, collaborative throughout a company.
So what is he trying to? Go ahead.
He got clowned on that. It was a very good tweet when he explained his view on it. He got ridiculed because you're cheering a Slack bot basically, or something like that. But the whole.
But it's interesting because like it's more than a Slack bot, right?
Exactly.
It's like it's this kind of like multi-tenant agent that works for you but works within the company as well. So like,
co-worker on demand.
yeah, yeah, it's almost like having OpenClaw in your Slack that's tailored to you, but everyone can talk to it, but it only responds. It also responds individually and does things individually, but then also can collaborate between other people in the company.
That's
So
right.
it's a really interesting, like their back end, like if you go into the team side and you see how they set it up, there's like so many different options about, you know, who can talk to it and how they can talk to it, and you know, like how you set it up. It's pretty interesting. It's an interesting approach at going about it.
Does it take into consideration all of the personal contexts?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like you have your own context with it, but it also has the context of the company.
But does it like build on top of the personal context?
No.
Okay, so it's not sharing.
It's not sharing your personal context with other people.
Yeah, but like with let's say you have a group chat and then like everybody can use this tag and have the personal context. Does it take into consideration the findings of the personal context?
No, from what I understand, no.
Okay.
There is a setting for it in the back end for that. I don't know what options there are, I don't remember. But yeah, that's kind of their selling point, is that even though it's in a shared chat and it's a shared tool, you can have your own personal context with it without including other people's personal context with it. So
What he's talking about here in the sort of first part of the tweet is like, we're used to having tools like Hardcore as a tool. It's just the thing that we use when we need to get software built. And it's like the whole engineering background. I carry the same baggage with me, so I work with that and I explain that machine to do something for me. But he's pointing out that there's far more into the system. You can talk to your cloud like to a team member or a coworker, and then if you give it access to certain tools, you can leverage the underlying model capabilities in far more different ways than treating that like code agent just as a code outputting tool. You know, I think that was the biggest. It got a little bit lost in the whole
I have
context
a question on this. Some people were pissed off at Karpathy, right?
Yeah.
Because he puts this statement out, and we're like, yeah, whatever. We had this, been there, done that, basically.
Well, let's explain for a moment. Put out what
He put
the
out
second
this.
part, right? The second part. I think this is what got controversy.
This is what got controversy. Basically, he's saying, look, it's not just, what does he say? It's significantly more in line with all other blah, blah, blah. Once you make this work, right? So basically, he was saying this is not just, what was it, like a Slack bot or whatever?
Yeah. You're saying this is like a new revolution
yes,
in a
but,
sense.
and then when people pressed them on it, right? Like, yeah, okay, we got these Slack bots. We have it in other systems, OpenClaw, other, et cetera, right? Fine. You know, so don't tell me like the hand waving. Like, we're already pilled. We get it. But you're telling me this is like different than that. So at least tell us how it's different. Or are you just doing an Apple moment where you're pretending to invent something, right? That was already been doing in the open source community. And then the clue is he's saying, well, you see example engineering work to make it just work, right? So that's an Apple, like that's what Apple does, right? Well, you know, you did it before, but it just works now, and maybe that is a big difference,
But I
right?
think the multiplayer mode is the biggest difference here.
they're still doing it. Like there's no other Slack bot that has this multi-tenancy concept. Like you can't put OpenClaw as a Slack bot and use it where it has individual context plus
RBAC stuff.
Yeah, it has like a multi-model system, right?
Okay, you can. It's like maybe 2-3 hours of code with OpenClaw. It's just not configurable like on the default side.
But I think what you guys are honing on is the difference between this entire time up until this week. We're all familiar with single-player use of your agent tool. You directly interface with your whatever, your harness, Codex, Claude Code, Open Code, whatever. And he's saying that this is now multiplayer, and that the DX, he even puts it right here. This is the third major redesign of LLM UI UX. The first paradigm was that the LLM is a website you go to. That was the original ChatGPT.com, the one that got everyone's love and attention. ChatGPT 3, if you remember, was just the web only. The second was an app that you download your computer. And here's referring to Claude Code CLI, Codex CLI, whatever, take your pick, Claude Code Desktop, all these things. The third one is that it is self-contained, persistent, asynchronous entity with org-wide tools and contexts working alongside teams of humans. So there's a lot of interesting takes here. One thing you can say is that this is the evolution of what we all knew that OpenClaw was going to evolve into some greater, more perfected, refined form. I think going back to February, that was literally what we were saying in this room, that some refinement will come out eventually that will take all the bad stuff about it, fix it, and it will look it will be revolutionary potentially. He's come out here saying that's what he thinks is happening. And then the controversy is a bunch of people saying that's a load of shit. I don't understand why.
But so there's this thing. Sometimes your USP of a SaaS product is that it's just better designed. It's easier to use. It feels better to use. The reason a lot of people prefer Claude Code over Codex and the CLI is because the UX is better, not because that code output's better. We already know that GPT 5.5's code output is better, but it feels better inside a Claude. It's a UI UX thing. And then there's this, so there's this whole other factor, and it's like, with a bunch of work and extra piecing together and doing things on the side, you can make it, right? And it just works. And that's the difference between like everybody in a company using it and just the 3 engineers that took the time, took the 5 hours a week to do it.
So many consumers.
So so if it just works, right? And because it is true, they aren't doing anything super revolutionary. They're doing, they're approaching this the same way a lot of people took OpenClaw, is throw it on a machine. It's in a container. You give it its own email address. You give it all its own tools. That was a big piece of it, right? Like they kind of said that like it was revolutionary, but we've been doing this for a long time with personal agents. Like it doesn't use the company's tools. It uses its own. It doesn't use the company's email. It uses its own email. Yeah. And that's how it keeps this multiplayer system in place. But another, we've talked about like. Claude or whatever is going to come out with their own OpenClaw agent system, and the difference between us using it and everyone else in the world using it is going to be the fact that it's just there and it just works and it's stable and it worked out all the issues. Yeah. And it's going to be the same for this. It's like, it's not revolutionary. It's not something that hasn't been done, but the 20 or 30 people that are picking on him about this aren't thinking about the bigger picture, which is now the other 85% of your company can actually use this plug and play with no issue, which is the whole Apple methodology, right? It's
but the question is, show me the receipts. In other words, what I'm saying is that you promise a USP, and I'm not saying it's bullshit, but why people are upset, I'm just saying, is that they're saying, okay, you dangle the USP out here, and then when I ask you about the receipts, like what is it? Tell me what are the things that, when it just works. Tell me how it just works.
But the thing is, they don't care about you and me, just works. They care about the small business guy that runs the 7-Eleven. And for what he needs, it plugs in the 3 things he needs, and it just works for him.
Again, the Apple methodology benefits over features.
But that's the second, but that guy, okay, needs to ask his tech friend, is this bullshit or not, right? In other words, you have a community of people. When a company releases some USB and a promise of value, there are people who technically will kick the tire and say, this is bullshit, it's not bullshit, right? And when you buy that thing, you're going to need to ask those people. Those people are on X. Those people are basically poking.
I think that they're trying to replace that for that guy. He doesn't need the technical friend, right? The whole onboarding experience, everything is, you're just talking to the agent. The agent says, hey, what's going on? Welcome, I'm onboarding you. Plug in your emails right here. Tell me what you want to do. Okay, I have QuickBooks. Okay, I'm going to do those things.
I'm the CTO of a company, all right?
But they're not focusing on you. It's literally the small businesses that don't have CTOs. That's where it just works. Like, I think you're right and he's right, but he's not trying to market this to you.
So are you saying that if you have a CTO in your company, this is relevant to you?
This is irrelevant.
Really?
I think it's completely irrelevant. I think it's only for Claude Code's focusing a lot of small businesses and trying to get into the companies that don't have CTOs. I work with lots and lots of small businesses, right? That's who uses our product. And they all, I'm very surprised, hundreds of like small businesses, they all have Claude Code. They don't use Codex. Codex is way too complex for them. They use Claude Code, they use Claude, that's how they set things up. And I think Claude is really pushing that direction. And I think Codex has been trying recently with some of their like integrated like skill sets, like sales skills, things like that, trying to make it more friendly. But Claude Code is genuinely, I believe, more friendly for the small business consumer that I think that Anthropic's really trying to get a lot of, or they already have. Because small businesses, they don't need a CTO. They need like design, they need help with their ads, they need like these 10 integrations. I mean, this is what my business does, right? So I'm very like in the mindset of it. They need like 10 integrations. I plug in Pipedream for them, right? Now they're just like, oh, well, this is all in Claude Code, so what do you do differently, right? Like, it's just, Claude Code is, I told it what I wanted to do, it plugs it in, and then now I just tell it what to do, and I can trust that at least it looks good versus Codex. And so I think that's what I mean is that like, I think it's stupid what he said there on that end, because it just makes sense for all of us. But he's not marketing to us. I think Claude's really trying to, I'm not saying as a company they're not trying to market to us. I'm just saying that this statement is really for the dumb people that use Claude Code.
Dumb people don't follow our path.
There's a lot of people on Twitter that, you know, get that on the AI side, they're trying to get into it, right?
I mean,
3 million.
There's 3 million followers, just not.
I know what you're saying.
I disagree. I mean, I don't know. It's Anthropic's play, right?
Anthropic's playing a lot of things.
I disagree that if you have a CTO, then you should ignore this.
But didn't they say
Doesn't make
anything
any
about context? Because I mean, if it's a multiplayer, then I mean, context management, right? That would be the big thing. Didn't anyone, I mean, I didn't follow this, but didn't anyone talk about, because a friend of mine has a startup, it's basically just doing context management for companies, that basically the branding guy, the marketing guy gets the right context when he uses like agents. And then, I mean, this would be probably, I don't know, they should have mentioned that somewhere, I guess, context management.
Yeah, so they kind of did. I saw a follow-up on this, and they're using it in Slack. So you start a Slack thread, you add all your coworkers in one Slack thread, you're kind of like working on one thing, right? So if you add Claude and it's GitHub, and it add Claude has access to GitHub, it can like pull in the ticket you're talking about. It can read all the context in that one thread, right? And if it has enough connectors, it can like run off and pull context from what you guys are talking about. So I think one of the quotes was like, and I don't believe it, but 65% of the work they're doing is just from @Claude now.
Yeah.
So like, you can build up context in a GitHub issue, and you can just say, okay, @Claude do this. Or you can build that up in a Slack thread and link to a GitHub and maybe some sales report, and it can go off and pull all the context, and you can say @do it. What I heard was the context is currently, like, they're probably pulling in everything and like dumping it somewhere, right? But if you just think of a Slack thread, there's a lot of context in there. It's the people associated with what's talking about. It's what you're talking about in that Slack thread. It's anything you link, and if you link, it can go out and get fetched. So you're kind of like building a little context engineering for like one fucking task, and then when you're done with it, you can kind of kill it and start a new one, right?
Maybe they realize that this is actually a good way for normal teams to manage context. You know, that this happens organically because everybody interacts with it, and then you basically maybe can even forego like real context management systems that run in the background.
Well, are they actually running context manager? I mean, Anthropic's really run, like, they've moved the opposite direction of like Codex and from the orchestrator side to like, let's run hundreds of agents. And so I haven't looked, I couldn't find anything on it, but I imagine it's just spinning up an agent. Like, they don't care what you're spinning on it. I feel like it's just going to spin up an agent for every task, right? And then that agent puts a summary out, and that 1,000 token summary comes back to the main agent. So it's literally just a 1 million, orchestrator agent that is just everything that comes through, it sends to a sub-agent. Every single thing. And then they can keep pretty good context of what's going on because it's just having everything be summarized for it.
Like, it can go off and, like with connectors, they're obsessed with connectors, right? So it's like, oh, we're talking about this GitHub issue. Boom, go off, summarize, like distill. That's how I would assume it would. Supposedly you could put a budget associated with clock tags too. Be like, you only got $5 to do this.
I wouldn't be surprised if the whole innovation there was like, when you dig really deep into it, it's like, basically it's not one agent anymore. We just use sub-agents. That's honestly what I imagine when they did. It's like, we just have the Slack agent now uses sub-agents for everything. and then that's the, but it's like, looks pretty, right? And that's, that's why I don't think they put out too much technical context on it. That's why I didn't touch it immediately, because it didn't say anything, I didn't say anything about real context management, caching, how it's managed. And so I think it's just an orchestrator agent that, fires off as many agents as it needs, because that's what it does.
Tariq did try to add a little bit on the technical side. He did emphasize that underneath the hood, it is Claude Code CLI through and through with no changes whatsoever. So it's built on top of it.
It's just a workflow, right?
It could be a combination of things. Like we were talking earlier about /fork. I mean, it could also be a heavy use of that. I actually did some my own practice runs where I gave myself a challenge where I said, I'm going to start this session, and every single prompt I send, I'm actually going to just send it via /fork. The dumbest, weirdest thing to do, but I just wanted to see how it would pan out, and it was incredibly effective. Like very, very effective. If you're doing a manual steering session in Claude Code, let's say you're dealing with something that requires you to do manual steering, I highly recommend to try the /fork on everything you send to the model. It is a very different way of interacting with the AI, and because it reuses cache and it's highly compatible with and integrated with the caching system, I wouldn't be surprised if they're using that under the hood.
Well, I looked in the code maybe a week ago. They had a fork that basically you would fork, you could do whatever you wanted with it, and then it would come back at the end and give a summary, and then back to the main agent. You could remerge it back to the main agent.
Yeah.
So you run a whole fork basically off the same cache cheaply, and then do whatever task. It's the same way, by the way, it works, but it's just it's basically just actually gets back to the main agent whatever the summary is. And
they branch the cache. They branch the cache. On that branch, you get this. You do the directive, whatever it is, and then it comes back, and the manual model, the orchestrator, just gets 10,000 tokens, I think, is what the maximum limit is.
You're still assuming that there is an orchestrator.
There's always an orchestrator somewhere.
Like, if I have 5 employees in a Slack chat and I have Claude, I would assume that each one of them basically gets assigned a profile. Like if I ask what I need to do today and you ask the same question, we both staff and Claude are 2 data sources, 2 sources of truth that have to exist.
Yeah, but that's part of. I think they took that into account in their design. From my understanding, the @Claude system is built in a way where, and this is what organizations want. If okay, let's say we were all in the same exact organization. I can configure the @Claude so that in channel A, if you and I are in the same channel, if all of us were in the same channel, when you use @Claude, it specifically only has access to a certain set of repos, and it has both read and write access to certain repos. And I can say if he calls it, it's got to use its own independent memory system, or it's a shared one. So you get all these knobs that you can turn. That I know we didn't talk about it here. No,
are you getting it?
The question of are you getting it? The answer is yes. There are videos. I did watch a lot of the Claude Tag videos that show the administrative side of how you set it up, how you configure it. There are a fuckload of knobs that you can turn. It has a lot of the solved problems, if you will, of trying to create one of these multiplayer things. So I don't say that that's amazing, but there is nothing else, to Ian's point, there's nothing else in the market right now that even remotely is close to offering that level of enterprise control, integration.
Yeah. That's why I would say it's the opposite. If you are a CTO, you should pay attention, okay? Because it has RBAC and it has all of the compliance and policy and all this shit that you care about, right?
Yeah.
Because it's enterprise ready, and he's saying it, but it's I guess people are still waiting, I guess, right?
I think that's what's happening.
They're still waiting for the receipts.
Yeah.
And then the question will be as Anthropic puts this kind of it leads maybe.
Yeah.
In other words, we can't tell if Anthropic is leading or not because they don't have the receipts, but they're claiming that they're leading, right? To have the enterprise ready.
This is a bet and an I told you so moment.
Right.
4 weeks.
And if I'm a CTO, I'm okay, is this a new thing? And if I buy it, do I need to buy it now, right? Can I wait? If I need to buy it, can I buy something else instead? Or there's nothing else? This is singularly exceptionally, like there's only one game in town because they've broken ground on it. That's what I'm saying. So it's unclear at the moment.
I agree with you.
You remember, that's how Box competed with Dropbox, right? So Dropbox went consumer, and then Box.com added all of these enterprise things, and it was the only game in town.
Right.
And so Dropbox is now like the laughing stock of the .com, the new AI.com crash. So it seems, my first thought would be that what Karpathy is saying is that like the multiplayer passive aspect is totally brand new because
Yes.
as of
Yep.
right now, I have no fucking, I'm totally solo on everything, and the primary reason is I don't know how to fucking collaborate with you guys. Like I work PRs and I don't work trees. I don't fuck. And if there's a thing where it's like, oh, we just spin up a Slack, and now I just say, oh, you tweak the knobs, and we're good, and we have observability on everything, and everything quote unquote just works. I would imagine that leads to like the next wave of the overall AI economy. Where
Very good point. This could open its door to an entirely new methodology, a new approach in how AI products should be built, because this is potentially better than the previous iteration of, download the CLI to your computer and so on.
It goes back to the Shopify thing we talked about earlier, right? It's like now they have 30,000 engineers or whatever. It's the same thing. It's like now in Slack, you're giving power
Good point.
to people in the organization that may not have had it or didn't know how to work with it or use it. And that's the door opening thing, is like now you can walk into a company, as long as you have Slack and you have an enterprise cloud account and we set it up, we can do a lot of things that would have been, needed a full
It's the most
FD
lucrative-
experience to integrate and set up and manipulate.
But if it's using the
It's
same,
like-
I mean, can you imagine the experience? Like Claude's already slow, and we're already working with it right. It takes a while to respond unless you're on like Fable, right? So can you imagine 10 people messaging an agent and just the time, like with our human attention span right now, like it's very short. Like I can't even imagine one agent trying, even if you spun out a bunch of other agents, right? The time to go back, because Slack's very fast, right? And so like I just don't see it working in Slack. But I mean, basically I haven't tested it because I'm just used to Claude. Like I can't imagine 10 people talking to 10 Claude agents in Slack.
Yeah.
The time difference and keeping the attention.
Well, I know, so I've been, this week I've just been experimenting, so like I've been playing with Eve. You see Vercel's version of OpenClaw, and it all runs through Slack. It's the same kind of concept without the multiplayer aspect of it. And it's running Opus 4.8. I find it to be extremely fast.
Yeah,
It's like talking to. In fact, I find the people we talk like most people in a company on Slack work very asynchronously. So you're usually, unless you're in like a DM and you're talking about something, there's not a fast response anyway. But I find like when I work with the Eve agent in it, and I've just been playing with it, like trying to push it to its limits, I find it to be very.
But is it because like thinking is on low?
What's that?
Do you know what the thinking level is? Like the.
I think it's high. I mean, you can set the level. But
We'll do,
just
and I'll do closing statements after.
thing, because my feeling is like Microsoft announced something that did not.
Copilot.
No, the OpenClaw. They said something like 3 weeks ago, something that they are.
Oh, at Microsoft Build, they're integrating it directly into the OS as a button turn on.
OpenClaw, I think they
Yeah.
called it like Microsoft Scout or something. I don't
Yeah.
know exactly, but it feels like this is rather a decline for the enterprise level. So that the cloud is actually introducing what actually they are like in line with the enterprise.
Yeah, good point. I think it shows directionally where everyone is sort of thinking they might be far away from each other, but they're also close in some ways.
This feels like they don't want to be behind that, not they are changing the world. It's like we're doing this more or less, but now others are doing it in a compliant way. But that's my feeling.
Has anyone tried the Microsoft version of OpenClaw? Like I don't know if anyone in the world even uses it.
But isn't it just spawning OpenClaw in Windows? Isn't it?
It's a totally separate product. It's
it's built separately.
And like the LTS is designed for Windows, and So it's, I mean, it has a lot less features. It's not like Dreamy and bullshit like that.
I think it gets to the point, I think what we're all moving towards is like, how are we getting closer and closer to where AI is the OS?
Yeah.
You know, whether you're in Slack or on your desktop or
Yeah.
anything, it's just gonna be the
So
way you.
what's interesting about Claude Tag, I'll put these two things and then I'm going to close here. If you're an organization with 2,000 people and you only have 10 devs, now you just have 2,000 devs. Like that's what Claude Tag might be promising, not sure. To the point of the solo, if you're a solo entrepreneur, I am going down a rabbit hole of like testing out Claude Tag. I'm a solo person and I'm like trying this idea of like, well, what if I had my Slack channel, which is very empty, it's just me, but I have all these channels with Claude's different, because you can tune Claude in each channel, and it's almost like I treat them all as employees. It's actually an interesting way to approach things. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's the Eve thing was like that. It's like treating it like an employee.
The dream we always wanted. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up. We're going to close here. We're at time. Two announcements. One, we do lunch right after. It's next door. I'll just see you there. Just go ahead. And the other one is, finally, I know I've been asked nonstop. Everyone has asked me, can we please get the data from the event shared? Can it be online? I know you have asked for it for maybe more than a year. So last night, basically my website, everything that we do on Saturdays, the YouTube videos are all going to be publicly available. And this goes all the way back to like when I started recording it more than a year ago. I'm rolling it out very slowly, but that's just an announcement that like, because I get these questions from you guys, please give me the data from the event. All right, it's coming out. We're finally here at a point. So those are the two announcements. So if you're going to lunch, see you there. And thank you for coming. Awesome. See you guys next week. We'll wrap it up here.